So I'll call this meeting to order, and will we please stand for the Pledge to Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Are there any changes to the agenda? I think, Ruben, we're going to add the warrant articles.
Oh, I would, yeah, request, Carrie had sent some revised warrant articles. One of them still needs to be tweaked. I think we messed up a number still, but the warrant articles we can put on the agenda just as okay, and so that we're prepared to go for the public session next, public session next week.
Okay.
And I think
just
that
put it down.
Nick probably can pop that up on the screen at some point in time.
Yeah, they're
okay.
Then uploaded to the website, so I can just go there.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so public comments, we'll start there.
Yeah, so I'll take this off in just a second. Traditional way that we're going to run this, just try to raise your hand through the attendee window. That'll kind of flag you down for us. We can then address you by name. Before you start your comment, if you could please just say first name, last name, and your town of residence. Greatly appreciate it. So first off, we're going to have Mark Haley.
Thank you. So Mark Haley, I'm from Keene, New Hampshire, and I'm an 8th grade teacher at JRMS. I wanted to just share a concern first about the retrieval date on the information for the upcoming presentation about return to school. Just where it's saying that it was retrieved on December 30th. And I appreciate the date being in there, but that makes me a little bit concerned since checking WMUR today, we had upticks in both Jeffrey and Rindge for case numbers. And I'm also just a little concerned about looking at this data to inform something when our incubation period for COVID, we know, is around up to 14 days. And we're not really sure about any impacts taking place of community transmission that takes place over the holiday break. So I just want to throw out a suggestion about pushing the decision to the January 19th board meeting, where we'll have a better idea of any impacts from the holiday break. And it would coincide with a change in semester at the middle and high school. So that might kind of be a nice bit of serendipity where things would pan out pretty well for those. And then, you know, I know that the remote learning has been its own sort of upheaval for a lot of families and things like that, but I would worry that we would go back for 2 weeks and then suddenly we would see a spike from the holiday break and have to go back. And I think that back and forth might be more detrimental than just waiting until the end. So that's what I wanted to thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Mark.
All right, and next, Linda Morgan Cooper.
Went remote. Cheshire County was at that point in the red.
Sorry, Linda. You came in the middle of a sentence. Your sound came in all of a sudden.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So my name is Morgan Cooper. I live in Peterborough, but I'm a teacher at JGS. In November, when we went remote, Cheshire County was in the red. At one point, we were over 30, close to 40 new cases with Rindge and Jaffrey combined. And at this point, we're at 12 new cases in the two towns combined, and Cheshire is no longer in the red, not even dark orange at this point. Remote learning for our youngest learners is certainly not ideal. We have little ones trying to learn while in daycares, in homes that have literally no work or quiet space for little ones, or they're at home with minimal or no supervision due to parent work schedules. My students who were doing most of their learning outdoors had made incredible strides from September to November, more than I've seen in other years. And going from being outside where they had the opportunity to move frequently to being indoors, getting all of their lessons by way of a computer, has all but halted any new learning. And I'm literally just plugging the dam and hoping that not too much is lost. And that is for the ones who come on a regular basis. I have several that are missing more than half of their learning while we're in remote. But when we were in person, they were there all day. I feel the grade school has several protocols in place to keep both students, staff, adults safe. And I've heard very minimal complaining from students about wearing masks, which I know had been a concern in the beginning. But I have a lot of really miserable students trying to do this, to learn remotely. I'm really hoping that we can return on the 19th. At that point, we will have given families a full 14 days from the break when families may have traveled to visit family. And I feel it is absolutely in the best interest of our students, our younger ones especially. I can't speak to middle and high school, specifically just our preschool through 5th grade. And I would even advocate that if we're not feeling ready for a full opening, that we at least move the 2 grade schools to in-person learning for those little ones that remote is really not benefiting them. Thank you.
Thanks, Morgan.
All right, and that's all we have for hands raised at this time.
Okay. Thanks, Nick. Okay, so we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Well, you know, to go along with some of the conversation we'll have later on this evening, we are also at that point of when we do come back to that hybrid model of being able to make that switch. So people have been given the opportunity for several weeks now to be able to reply and say whether they're interested in returning to the hybrid model from remote. Those are individuals who are remote during the first couple quarters, and then or go the other way. And we do have both types of requests certainly already. When I put this together, I tried to do this a little bit later, and then I sent an email out to families. This number has gone up by about another 25 or so. And the pie chart has changed a little bit, but you can just see some of the interest levels there. What you don't see is the pie chart that kind of separates the grades. The area, I would say there's probably about 15% of the individuals responding are from the middle high school. The majority of them, probably about 30% from, well, good chunks of, most of them from elementary school, a lot in the 3rd, 4th grade range. So we'll have that going for tonight and then tomorrow. And if we go to the next page, stimulus funds, we know that the stimulus package has been voted on and approved. And so what that means for schools is that we'll be receiving some more funding. I don't have the exact date as to when that funding will come our way. I do have a rough estimate of what that funding is going to be, and I know how long we'll be able to utilize it. So I think it's there are some restrictions as to the money on what we're able to use the money for. For instance, right now, I don't believe we're going to be able to use it for technology or things of that nature. That window has passed or still is with our current COVID funds that we have, if that's something that we need to continue to work on. But we will receive roughly, at least they're telling us to plan on, receiving about 4 times what we did earlier this year. And so that means that it would be around maybe a little over $1 million. If all those numbers, indeed come in as they say. They're using the same type of data to base their decision on from the earlier allotment that we had. This money, of course, is able to be used for a longer period of time, so not just by the end of this year. It would be able to we'd be able to use it next year as well. So if there are some specific, maybe larger ticket items that we would want to be planning for to make sure that we're continuing to improve our systems here at the school, that's something that we'll be able to we'll be able to do. And then as a reminder, just that there's the school board delegate assembly on January 23rd, 10 a.m. It's virtual. There are a few new items that are put forward, a couple from Conval, a couple from Monadnock Regional School District. The NHSBA, goes along with a couple of them and doesn't go along with a couple other ones. The one that they do that I think is very interesting is one that Conval put out about broadband internet, so basically the goal of really having the organization push for the government to spend more money on the infrastructure of the future and not simply leaving it up to chance, especially since it has been quite a struggle for many during remote learning here, but everywhere, most places. And that's what I have for the report. Any questions?
All right. Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, on to the consent agenda. Are there any changes to the consent agenda? Any minutes that need to be pulled?
Could we pull December 12th, public, please?
And also December 21st, public and non-public.
December 12, public, and December 21, both? Okay. Any other changes? All right. I have a motion on the consent agenda as amended.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. And Charlie, is that a second from you?
Yes.
Great. Okay. I'll do a roll call vote. Alicia?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Thank you. Laurel?
Yes.
Thank you. Heidi?
Yes.
John?
Aye.
Thank you. And Patty?
Aye.
I say aye, so it passes 700. Thank you. Okay, let's do the 12th. Motion for that?
I have a suggested amendment on
Oh, an
page,
adjustment.
I have to find it. On page 3, there's a motion regarding rescinding authorization to fund the Turner work from the Building Maintenance Reserve Trust and to fund that work from this calendar year's funds, which would be 2021. I think the minutes read 1920.
Correct.
All right. So I need,
I would suggest we amend the minutes to reflect our intent is to fund the Turner work from this year's current budget, fiscal year 2021.
all right.
And with that, I move we approve the public meeting minutes for December 12 as amended.
Okay, thank you, Laurel. And
Second.
John, second, thank you. And roll call vote, Patty?
Aye.
Thank you, John.
Aye.
Thank you, Heidi.
Aye.
Thank you, Laurel.
Yes.
Thank you, Charlie.
Aye.
Thank you, Alicia. Is
Yeah.
Alicia muted?
Yes.
Sorry, okay.
Hear me?
Yeah, got it. And I say aye, so that passes 700. And so then December 21st, public and non-public.
I move
I
we
need a
approve the
motion.
meeting minutes for December 21, public and non-public.
Actually, I believe that, can we just look, I think when I looked earlier that Alicia, it looked like you were counted as present at,
Right there, yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Was not present.
No, at either of them.
No.
How is your finger, by the way?
Better for the most part. Thank you.
Thanks.
okay. I move we accept the meeting minutes for December 21, public and non-public, provided that Alicia Stennerson is not shown as present.
All right, thank you, Laurel. And I need a second.
I'll second.
Heidi?
Patty.
Oh, it was Patty? Okay.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, you said, sorry, Patty. I was faster than her.
Okay. Either one. Roll call vote. Patty?
Aye.
Thank you, John.
Aye.
Thank you, Heidi.
Aye.
Thank you, Laurel.
Aye.
Thank you, Charlie.
Aye.
Thank you, Alicia.
I abstain.
Thank you. And I say aye. So that passes 601. Okay. Next up.
So you've had some time to kind of review this one over. I think that one of the members from public comments had indicated a little bit of concern about the date on this one. Certainly this was done prior to the holiday. And so some of those numbers have changed. I did check this morning for the trends. I didn't check all the new numbers or anything like that, but the trends, graphically speaking, shape-wise, looked to be the same when I looked at the DPHS information. So not to say that numbers aren't increasing in different places. They're certainly increasing more in other parts of the state than they are here, but they are obviously still, people are still getting ill here as well. So if we could go down, basically where our decision matrix and all of our categories are and everything basically is that we are currently in remote. We've been there and we continue to have conversations each time about where we're at and what the trends are and what the next best thing to do is. We've heard a couple different things tonight from, I guess, teachers actually, who have expressed their concerns in a couple different directions, and all of those concerns are indeed valid because there's a lot going on. Now, the district provided, just to kind of give you some highlights, we've provided 75 hotspots. Everyone that I'm aware of who requested one was able to get one. We gave some hotspots out to the Ringe Recreation Department so that they could service their learners over there. The Ringe Recreation Department had some learning pods over there, and so we were able to help with those situations. Athletics, we've started our athletic practice, and competition is at least in lines to happen and to continue. We haven't had any competition. We haven't had any games yet. Just practice at this point in time, and it seemingly has gone well. I have not checked on things in the last couple of days, but when I do my spot checks, the players are wearing masks and they're fairly distanced apart from one another, unless they're, of course, engaged in an activity that would not require that. Clubs and other activities are continuing. Some are in person, some are online. I know elementary, a lot of those are online with some of the animation club, for instance, that's going on. That's very popular, actually, all the way through the middle school. Also, I know that there are some clubs that are happening at the school as well. I was able to go on my, twice a day water run that I do across the school. and saw a group of individuals in one of the rooms. I think it was either Nintendo Club or it was Magic the Gathering or something to that effect, but there were a group of individuals there, and I know that robotics has continued to meet as well. And then other ones are done online. They're learning pods. We were able to set those up. We had kind of 3 different stages of that. We invited more individuals than ended up coming, but overall we've had a steady 100 to 140, depending on well, maybe 130 individuals across the schools. And so that's been going well. It's not full-time, usually half days, but it is something, and the buses were able to help support us with those, and that has gone well. And then, I think that the sentiments, really, everyone's been saying the same thing. In person is the desired model. Certainly, we're not going to be completely 5 days a week in person for some time. I wouldn't think, unless things change drastically. But, and there has been some success with remote. We still do, I get some emails, I send them along to the school board if they're more like public comment, just so that you know what the feeling is of the community. But some people are having some success with remote learning, and there are also those that are not having success. And, attendance is certainly more difficult during remote, more so with younger kids. And so that's something to think about during this time frame as well. We have a pretty good system right now, probably the best system we've had for a while, and at the SAU level anyway, helping the schools out with truancy. So we've been trying to meet with parents and set up plans and so forth, even during this time frame. We can go to the 3rd slide there. Again, yeah, this is a few days off, but if we went to the graph, maybe not tonight unless there was another graph that was put up there, but earlier this morning anyway, the graph would still look pretty similar in the shape. Understanding this is, daily trends for cases by report date. You can go on the side and be able to find out a lot of different ones, like, what are the number of cases in the last 14 days and so forth. Obviously, the number itself is still higher than in some months past, but the trend looks like it's at least slowing. So you can increase while still slowing the trend down. I threw this slide in just to talk about hospitalization, because I think it's an important thing to consider. Is our hospitals having difficulties with the surge that took place over this holiday season? And right now, I mean, we've been looking and trying to get that information. The information that, if it's up to date online, seems to indicate that our hospitals are in okay shape. I'd love to have more information to the contrary if it were the case, but right now we're not hearing that that is the case. And so certainly some of what we do here to decide about community transmission and our role in that is that we don't want, we do need to do our part to make sure that our healthcare institutions can do what they need to do. Right now it appears, certainly we looked at ICU information and information about just the numbers within hospitals, and either they're not reporting that information around here, or the numbers aren't significant enough to report. And so that's where we're at. And we checked today. This is another graph. Again, this is December 30th. The trend looks a little bit different. There are new cases in the area. Things have evened out a little more with the numbers in Ringe and Jaffrey. So where it was, more Ringe centric the last time we had a conversation. Overall, Cheshire County is amongst the lowest in the state. I wouldn't say the lowest. I think, Sullivan is right above it, is a little bit lower. But certainly we're in better shape than Rockingham and Hillsborough, mainly certain parts of Hillsborough County, where there's more population, of course. This is just overall school information total. That's across all the schools in the states. Accurate, probably, because they had time to get it more accurate. I wouldn't say that during my experience during the time we are actually in school doing our work and everything. I would say that the data is usually a couple days behind. We go to the next one. It's just showing where, New Hampshire and then locally where Jaffrey Ringe is and how many cases we've had. We've had our cases. We haven't had any clusters. At one point in time, we were looking at and talking to DPHS as to whether we did have a cluster or may have had a cluster. It turned out that though there was a fair amount of exposure, that did not end up becoming the case in one of the schools. And most of the other ones had nothing to do with any school transmission. We don't know if any of them had to do with school transmission, but certainly one of them could have. The other ones, we have information that it would have been coming from other areas, perhaps even other areas outside of this region. This is an interesting graph that has just recently been put up, maybe in the last 2 weeks or so. I talked to the deputy commissioner just after they had put this up there, partly because we didn't give a whole lot of information to them, because we do have a hybrid going on, but we also have remote. And at the time that they were asking us questions, we were in the middle of some decision making. So I think our dot is in the gray, like I didn't provide them that. But if you look at the schools that have provided information as to what their models for the most part have been, now every single one of them has the ability to go into a remote setting at any point in time for a classroom or a group of individuals or a school. But you can see that most are either in person or hybrid within this graph. Well, that's not necessarily true. The most that have expressed what they are doing are either hybrid or in person. There are some remote that are fully remote, and you can see, for instance, the difference between that orange dot and that yellow dot way up top in New Hampshire, kind of along the Vermont border, right up there. Yep. There's a lot of not provided, so that information is, what it is probably a mix between them all, certainly. But I think it's more important to look at where the in-person and hybrid sections are within the schools. So during a time that, again, the two counties, Rockingham and Hillsborough County, have been and continue to have much higher concentration of cases, a lot of places have continued to remain semi or in some cases entirely in person. And so in looking at the state data and looking at this and talking to the Bow superintendent and a couple other superintendents, and then even Monadnock, which is very close by, who has not chosen to go away from their hybrid model that they have. They haven't gone forward to another level of model, but they didn't go fully remote. That the transmission due to school being in session doesn't seem to be significant. Now, there are there's some literature out there that have said that they've done some studies in some other states that have said that indeed that's the case, unless you get into a situation where transmission across the community is much higher anyway, and then schools can have an impact. But they gave the caveat that some of those schools may not have used all the mitigating factors that, for instance, we have, or most of the places around this area have, with masks, social distancing, air quality, measures, outdoor learning, etc. And this was in an article, again, around that same time frame, December 29th, just to kind of give you an update. I think Messinic wouldn't tend to be counted in a Sentinel. It's not usually a school that they cover as much, whereas the Ledger would cover them. But we're kind of on the outskirts of that within Cheshire County. And so these schools right here all currently are planning to return to their hybrid. I don't believe that any of them are, Hinsdale, Jaffrey, I don't believe any of them are fully 5 days a week in person, except for maybe a smaller district within SAU 29. I think there's a school or two that are full 5 days a week in those areas. But they plan, due to the 14 days of after the holiday break and so forth, returning at that point in time. Again, Monadnock never left that. More information, because I shared it last time, that I think it's important for us all to consider, is that we also are close to Massachusetts. And last time we were talking about this, these colors were more in the yellow, and now they're more in the red. Again, those people in those communities come over and shop. And then just a couple decisions here. One, stay with what we are currently on track to do. Or one, to postpone that decision. The Keene State, there was an article that talked about Keene State starting the mid-February. And that was based upon some data that the state had thought of maybe there could be a spike during that late January, early February timeframe. It doesn't necessarily mean it would happen across the entire state, but definitely in certain areas where they've had some spiking already. Keene State was proactive. Dr. Treadwell has done a great job over there. I think both colleges in our area have done a great job with the work that they've done with keeping things safe within their communities. And so I trust the work that they do. They have a different type of population and a different type of organization that they have to consider, with people staying overnight and all the testing and so forth that they have to do. So, and Keene in particular, with Keene State, Keene is a darker color within Cheshire County than we are currently right now. My recommendation, if you want to have that, is, I mean, it's a tough call. There's a lot of information all over the place. I really do believe that our kids need to be in school if we can do that. And I think our community needs to know the date that they're going to go back in. I don't disagree with what one of the individuals said during the public comments about going in and maybe having to go back remote. I think there's a possibility of that could take place. But the next kind of proposal change to the decision-making matrix might address some of that. It wouldn't actually, the proposal on this next kind of picture isn't necessarily a change in practice, but more clarifying what I think, the communication would be. I think we have taken holiday travel into consideration. I think that there are a lot of schools in the region who are dealing with the same information, the same data, coming to the same conclusions. We've had schools across the state who have remained in person or in their hybrid models, which is a blend of sorts, different types of hybrid models. Some of them are like ours. Some of them are more like Monadnock's, so 2 days a week. And I think that we have very good structures in place to keep people healthy. So if you would like to switch to that next page, Nick, if that's possible. What we have, this is essentially the same thing of what we have. When we went into remote the first time, it was triggered because of the increase in community transmission. We had those areas that are currently in yellow. The bottom two were in red, and the other one up in the middle area was in green. And we kind of reassessed, but we also understood that in our handbook that we had approved the framework that the school board would initiate a conversation and really look at the information like we're kind of having, well, we're not having a dialogue yet, but listening to me talk, kind of giving some information and then making some informed decisions. You learn more as time goes on. If anything has been true about this entire situation, is that things have always changed, that information's changed, data's changed. What our knowledge of the virus, for instance, has changed. There could become a time where, you can read the news and certain strands might be stronger and we might get a different strand and it might send us in a different direction altogether, so that not even these hybrid models are appropriate. I don't know. I don't think we're not there. But we have to stay nimble in that sense. But what we thought we would do here, even if just for discussion purposes, and we can certainly leave things the way they are, is to better define the yellow and the red. And the red is kind of what I would consider, we put an asterisk there, is that if you scroll down to the red, the description of that, it's kind of a category that I wouldn't call a meeting for a school board. Because there's not a whole lot of choice. Basically, if I don't have teachers to run the school or a different grade level or part of the school, then at least a portion of the school or the entire school possibly, I would need to have remote for a period of time, especially if we have some cases inside the school. I need to make that decision and be able to do that in a fairly timely fashion so that people can, parents and families can make kind of the decisions that they need to. This last time around, we were able to give elementary school teachers and families a couple of days of transition time because we didn't have, we were fine in that category. It was more the community transmission that we were concerned about at the elementaries anyway. At the secondary, we were more concerned about the staffing levels. So keeping that, the ability to just call it remote when we hit that substantial and that school level impact is important because, like I said, it really kind of drives itself. Where we find that the level of community transition might not be the best way of being a self-driver is because of what I had just presented. In my opinion, that there are many cases where schools have found it in much higher concentrations of COVID have found it to be very safe and perhaps the safest place to be. When you have set schedules and people are on schedules, they tend to behave better. Also, a lot of conversations about the fact that, I got an email today saying people are sick and they're not getting tested and all that. Well, people aren't getting tested because we're not making them get tested, if that's the case. Our nurses sent people home for very quickly when there were some symptoms and so forth, and we made people get testing. And so that sort of thing, took place. Most of the people we sent home didn't have it, but we still wanted to take those precautions. And that's what I mean by the precautions we have. We've got really dedicated nurses, really who have been, I would say, behaving on the conservative side of things, making certain that we are not letting situations go, not letting like, oh, maybe this is okay. We've acted more in lines with the other side of things. So the yellow, the reason why I say it's not really a change per se, it's just more of a better way of communicating, is that the district will continue to monitor. Basically, if we're in that high area, the district needs to continue to monitor the data trends in Jaffrey and Rindge and the county. So the state as well, I suppose, but the county and Jaffrey and Rindge. And that we will have discussions and that we could indeed, even though it says yellow, JRCSD's hybrid, we could shift to remote learning at a school or the district. So it wouldn't take away that right there. It would just said, listen, yellow means you got to have a conversation. Green means we're not talking about it. Things are in good order. We're just doing it. Red over there means we don't have a choice anyway. Right here in this yellow it's that conversation spot. if we didn't have a choice, if we didn't really have a conversation, if there wasn't a debate about this, we wouldn't be having that conversation right now. And so this better really shows kind of where that conversation, you know, what's happening, at least with the current data that we have, where the conversation takes place. Again, green, there's really no conversation, everything's good. Red, those areas in red, when we have level of school impact, at least for a school, maybe not the entire district, there's not a whole lot of conversation to be had there. So that's just a proposal. We can act on it. We don't have to act on it tonight. Depends. I think it's a good model. Again, I don't think it changes what our practice is, but it's a better way of communicating what our practice is. And that's what I have on those two areas.
All right. Thanks. John?
Yep.
So Ruben, I just wanted to start out by thanking you for doing all the tracking that you have been doing of the options available to us, of the needs of our students, and also, of course, the data on on community transmission and local transmission. It feels like you've really taken this very seriously, and I know we all appreciate that. On this sheet here, I think the part that feels confusing is that you've got three colors, two of them covering the JRCSD's hybrid model. And so it looks like what you're saying, you know, it looks like what the chart is saying, is that if the level of school impact is high, that we're still going to stay in the hybrid system. Now, that's not what you just said. You said that we would look at that, would have a conversation, but it looks a little confusing. So I would say that. And one thing I did share with you and some of the other board members earlier today, I'm curious about, you know, where the level of vaccination availability is and whether that will flow into this. It's good to see that our trends in the last couple of weeks are not rising, that they're actually decreasing. I realize that's not the number of infections, but it's the trend in how those infections are either increasing or the rate of increase, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we did have some hopes that there would be vaccines available to us. And of course they are becoming available. Maybe there's been some hiccups. They're not quite as quickly available as we all hoped. But what can we do to try to get our staff members, our teachers and our teachers' aides into line for the vaccination program?
So a couple things. One, actually, John, I think you did catch a mistake here. I think we have the level of school impact and community transmission flipped. Because I think that we were talking about the level of school impact was what needs to be in the red, and the level of community transmission was, so the yellows would have to be flipped into a different category, a different corner, I believe, as I'm reading it. So really what should be saying is that the level of school impact.
That the bottom row should
be on the
be
bottom
all red.
The bottom row,
Right.
yeah. So that's a good catch. The sentiment would be the same, and we'd have to change that up. But yeah, so making sure that that matrix were reflecting the appropriate categories, that's good.
I was going to say also maybe just put in the yellows hybrid discussion. Just add the word discussion.
Yeah.
That way it's clear.
Or, you know, you could put hybrid/remote, you know, I mean, it could be that as well. Although we're kind of in that as already. Yeah. You know, you have the opportunity to be remote. I mean, that's another piece is that some people do have opportunity to be remote during this time frame. For the vaccine, yeah, teachers and staff members in the school district are, I guess, in that category 2. I spent some time hunting down any sort of idea of when that will take place. No one, there's nothing there. There have been some times when I've heard that people have been called up, people I know, who have gone in and got a vaccine because they've been called by the hospital to do so because it was going to not be good anymore. Certainly I can make a phone call, and we'll be happy to make a phone call to both Cheshire Med and also Monadnock to say if they're ever in that situation, let me know so I can put it out there for our own faculty. I do know that our nurses do have the ability to get that sooner. So, or may have already been in that space of getting it. So they are the ones in the schools that are considered high risk. The rest of us are not considered to be of high risk. We are in that moderate risk range. But I can make that phone call, John, to let them know that, hey, if you're in that spot, please let's find out what we can do to, I'll put it out really fast across the email, or make some calls to if staff who are interested, and if these vaccines are going to go bad because they're not being utilized, to get people into those areas to be able to get vaccinated, those who need it the most.
Okay, well, Ruben, I just thank you for that, and I'd appreciate that. This is such a massive logistical effort that the vaccination program is going to entail. There's bound to be some things like you referred to with vaccines that need to be used, and we certainly have some people, some staff members who are in that category. I heard you mention Category 2, I was looking online today, and one of the documents in the Union Leader, or an attached document, called them Group 1B. So they had a Group 1A, which was hospital workers, and then in Group 1B, first responders and teachers. So, I think everything is sort of up in the air a bit in terms of these protocols. Charlie shared with us earlier today a document that was developed back in October about how the vaccinations would be distributed. But it's, we're all working sort of, I don't want to say we're working by ear or something, but, we're trying to respond to the situation as it unfolds.
Yeah, it's a very fluid situation.
Right. So anything you can do and I think that our model has been a good model. We've had our students in class, up through mid-November, 4 days a week, which a lot of other districts didn't get to that. I think the learning pods are a great example of the efforts we've made to try to really respond to the needs of students. And I think we should feel good about that. And, just looking at how we can get in the proper place in line for the vaccinations would be another way to say, we're really trying to keep on top of this.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So, Ruben, I have a question.
Yeah.
So when we're remote, we're still gathering the data. That's correct, and doing the dashboard?
I believe we've still been working on the dashboard. The data's,
it's not as good.
It's not going to be as accurate. Yeah.
Right. So do we have, just curious, what today looked like? I didn't look today. I often do, but I didn't today.
Oh, I don't. Yeah. I mean, can you pull that up, Nick?
And then Laurel, you had a question or comment?
I do. Ruben talked about attendance and truancy, and are there any numbers you can share with us to help us understand the situation and perhaps our decision-making process?
Yeah, I don't have hard numbers. I don't have numbers. I just know that I ended up having discussions that I haven't had in the past about truancy officers and the processes that we've been taking to help support families. That doesn't always happen when you're in person. I mean, it does in one way or one form, but not as frequently.
Okay, so there are numbers available, you just don't have them at your fingertips now.
I do not have them at my fingertips right now, no.
Attendance would be, I think, a valuable set of information. Perhaps anytime.
I have two comments. The first is that I was thrilled to hear that testing would be moved up in priority level for teachers and students. That the governor had, and I credit the team that had known this was an issue all fall, and that they made efforts to mitigate that time lapse for students to be out of school. Was a major issue last fall, and I'm hoping that that gets much better this spring. And I'm really hoping it'd be great if our nurses had Buy Next Now cards that they could, with parents' permission, test the kids right there, or that there would be some, at home tests that the kids could take with their parents. That being said, I'm a little curious, probably a lot more curious about attendance of staff and support staff, faculty and staff, in terms of as we get closer to the 19th. And so I don't know if there would be greater adherence in the next 4 days and then the next 5 days in terms of teachers notifying us of exposures and their own need to quarantine for circumstances. And then I know the pickup patrol, it isn't a great science to know what the students are doing, but our attendance levels in terms of quarantining. So I'm in favor of returning on the 19th. A lot has changed in the last 12 weeks. And I really see the need for us to bring kids together with their teachers who are really mentors to them, and really it's critical at this point. But there's other factors we have to consider, like safety not just the health safety, but the being in the classroom and the busing and the food services and all of that.
We'll be putting out an email to staff pretty soon, within this week, with a new tool for them to report, hopefully significantly less cumbersome than what they've had before. It will be through Pickup Patrol. I have it all set up. And so people will be able to start responding, and so that we can get some of that data collected for our staff and get people back in the habit.
Right. Other comments? All right.
I will share just my experience with a few number of students that come to robotics in person. They are so thrilled to be working hands-on and with each other. I can't help but think it's something we should really push for returning to for all grades, and for all of the teaching. I just think it's essential.
Thanks. I'm just looking at our dashboard here, the different matrices, and I am wondering, with the kind of different coloring that you did, or the yellows and the discussions, would that I don't think that would change anything I'm looking at here, right?
You're referring to the to this document. Right?
Yes.
This document lives up here for more about the range. With
Right.
The document that had shown like the actual ranges for what is, green, yellow, red. And we have this document here that just kind of shows you it's a little bit more, because there's instead of hard lines, either red or green.
Right.
Past that. So all this is going to remain unchanged.
Okay.
Just if we, if we hit what we're really going to be looking here.
Right.
The decision matrix and comparing this to that.
Okay. So at this point, I guess do we need, I don't think we need a motion if we don't change. So I think I'm just surveying people right now.
Yeah, the only thing that we would
Am
want to
I
make a
thinking
motion
right?
on, if you wanted to make a motion, was on the adjustments to, and the adjustment that John had mentioned to that matrix, so that we could change it within, make an official change on our website and in the framework.
Right.
Again, it really doesn't change the practice, but hopefully the communication, and to add what you had talked about being decision or discussion.
Right. That it's clear that there's a discussion to be had for a decision.
It forces the conversation to continue to have. Yeah.
Right.
So the only change to the matrix is that the center decision-making block, if Nick could scroll to that, would be, so the bottom row is going to be red.
The bottom row will be red. Yep. And
And the center block will be yellow with a note about discussion required.
that's right.
Well, so
And then
the reds will also become yellow. So I flopped it incorrectly. So these will be yellow, these will be red. This will stay yellow, this will stay red.
Okay. So then under the substantial column, the level of school impact low and level of school impact medium will be yellow. Is that what I understand?
right.
Discussion required, no. Okay. I understand now, thank you.
Okay. So maybe we should tackle this first then. And take a motion on changing that, if that's what the board wants to do.
Yeah, if we were going to do that, we want a motion to adopt this change with the comments, made throughout the discussion.
Right. So is there a board member that would like to make a motion for that?
I'll make a motion. This is Charlie, I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Charlie.
I'll second for Charlie.
Okay, and the motion is that we are changing this as part of the decision-making matrix to what we have discussed tonight.
We're also adopting the descriptions for green, yellow, and red below.
Right,
The regular-
okay. All right, and Alicia, you second that, yes?
Yep.
Okay, great. So is there any more discussion on this? John? John, you're muted.
Sorry, thank you for that advice. And Charlie, thank you for pointing out that there is also the document below it, or the bullet points below it. And so I don't know, I'm wondering, do we need any discussion on those? I think, Ruben, essentially what this is doing, I guess, is making it clear that you have authority to make these determinations as
If
the
the
situation
school
develops.
level impact is high.
Okay,
Yeah, that's where Ruben had said that if the school level is high, chances are we're not going to have the teachers there to do what we need for, so it has to be.
And I
Yeah,
think that's,
or you have an outbreak, or you have, you know, significant illness or what
Right.
have you within a school. Yeah.
Right. And you need to act quick.
Mhm.
right.
Patty, did you have something else you wanted to say there?
no, I was just trying to make that point that it's the expediency of the decision that's important.
I will say, here's some information for you. I just was in touch with the truancy officer that we have here. And so truancy, by definition, you know, there's several days that, I believe it's 10 half days that a person has to be absent in order to be truant. Most of the time when someone's truant, it's more than that. It's usually 10 full days or more. And there has been communication and so forth. The numbers right now, we have 8 elementary learners who are, by definition, truant. You could have, you know, 200 elementary kids who are missing classes here and there. But if you're, but again, I think it's 10 half days within a semester or a time period that they would have to be absent. Then, and typically with remote, if you're, well, I won't even say that. And at JRMS and CHS, those numbers are higher. So those half days for JRMS, there would be, you know, 71 students who have been truant, which is high. And at CHS, 74 students who have been truant, which is also high. And so if they have 4 classes, for instance, in a day, and they miss 2 of those classes, that is a half day.
Hmm.
Thank you for getting that information. It's eye-opening.
And the
Okay, any other,
elementary, yep, sorry, the elementary takes attendance, I think, a little bit differently than the middle school, high school do.
right. Any other discussion around this matrix and descriptors?
Yeah, yes, just for clarification. So, Ruben, when it says that in the bullet concerning the red category, which would be across the bottom now, that reaching the red category does not require the superintendent to close any classroom, schools, or the district. That seems consistent in one sense with giving you the flexibility to react to staffing patterns and to variations in each school, I guess. But it does seem like a significant change in the sense that you're saying that even if, you know, we're in a high level of transmission, that we're not necessarily going to change. Is that really the intent there, or?
Well, I think you mentioned it earlier. Language like that gives flexibility. I think that we're going to always act in the, I mean, again, you know, excuse me, if when we get into contact tracing and we have cases and things of that nature, we start that process very quick. We're very aggressive with that. And then we make the decisions and act fast. There's never been a time that we wouldn't act. So, but a lot of the time with, like, for instance, with students, you know, we might not have to close down a school or a classroom, whatever like that. If it's in the red for staffing, I mean, we're closing down part of the school. I mean, there would be no choice. So I think it's just keeping the flexibility there because of why it's red.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I mean, every superintendent I've talked to that has had to go remote due to staffing, I mean, it is what it is, you know, if you don't have the substitutes. I mean, I guess if something goes red and we're able to somehow find the substitutes, you know, we're able to perhaps, you know, maintain. I guess that's a slight out in left field possibility.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any more discussion on this? Okay, I don't see any, so I'm going to go for a roll call vote on this. Just to remind everyone, we're voting on the matrix with the changes as we've discussed and the descriptors. Okay, Patty?
Aye.
Thank you. John?
Aye.
Thank you. Heidi?
Aye. Sorry, aye.
Thank you. Laurel?
Yes.
Thank you. Charlie?
Yes.
Thank you. Alicia?
Yes.
Thank you. And I say yes too. So that passes 7-0-0. And that's been revised now. Thank you. And in terms of decision, as I was saying, we've already made a decision. I just want to make sure everyone is still on board with our decision to return on the 19th. So I'm just going to survey. Okay, John?
Oh, go ahead and survey, that's fine.
Well, I can start with you. Go
Okay.
for it.
Okay, very good. Well, you know, there are a couple of things that have happened. We do have we're coming back from a break where we assume people have traveled. So I think we need to be particularly attentive to any changes over the coming 2 weeks. And it does not sound like we need to schedule another board meeting, but if things should change, I think we need to be prepared to attend an emergency board meeting if that should become necessary. And I guess we would rely on the superintendent to tell us if that's the case. Two things that have happened over this past several weeks. One, the death of the Speaker of the House just after he was sworn in at the New Hampshire House of Representatives, dying from COVID-19. And then just a few days ago, a young congressman, 41 years old, just elected in November and died before he could be sworn in. Just kind of a reminder that it's not only the elderly who are at risk and how serious this can be. And now, of course, we know that the much more, not dangerous in terms of death, but virulent
Contagious.
in terms of its spread. Yeah, much more contagious. Thank you, Marcia. The much more contagious strain of this virus is now here in the States, as it is in apparently 30 countries around the world. So, you know, we just need to be paying attention to the trends, that's all.
Don't let your guard down.
No, it would be a shame to let it down before the vaccine is fully dispersed, especially now that it's apparently here and being distributed.
Yep. Okay. Patty, do you have any thoughts, or are you good with the 19th?
I'm good with the 19th.
Thank you very much. Heidi?
I think, John, you took a lot of words out of my mouth. I had taken a couple of notes. I also think we need to be able to react quickly if things change. I very much think, especially our younger students, need to be in the classroom. I don't like, again, being in this decision, in this position to have to make these really hard decisions. But I do think that we need to stick with the 19th and like John said, shift if we see trends change drastically. And I would also beg our community to please take it seriously as well. John made some very good points. I have a family member who was hospitalized, and it does concern me that people aren't getting tested. I don't know what the reason is for that. maybe what, like Ruben said, they don't have to because they don't need it to be able to be in school. But I would just beg our communities to take this seriously. Stay home if you're sick, follow everything that we're asking you to do. And let's try to get our kids and everyone back in school. And if things change and it doesn't look good, then we have to do what's safe for everyone. So that's it.
Thanks, Heidi. Laurel, your thoughts?
I echo Heidi, and I think it's best for our children and community that we return to school.
All right, thank you. Charlie?
I'm not going to repeat everything that was said, but I agree with it. But I think that we just need to react to what happened. Everything is brand new at the time. And so we just need to stay alert and do the best we can for our kids.
All right, thank you, Charlie. Alicia?
I think everyone else has sort of summed up the points that I would make. So I definitely support returning on the 19th in light of those comments.
Okay, thank you. I too think that we need to, keep an eye on things, but continue with our original plan. I think we had a lot of considerations when we made that plan, and I think we stick with it until something happens that tells us otherwise. So, okay. Moving on. I guess this would be where we're going to do warrant article.
Yeah, we've more or less agreed on the warrant articles that would go forward. This one shows some changes, and actually there still needs to be another change, but we'll change that tomorrow. We missed the $25,000 one on article. If you can scroll down, we'll work backwards. The one that says, shall the school district vote to raise and appropriate up to $100,000 with a special ed contingency fund? You already, chose to go with $25,000.
Right.
So that one we know is set. I believe Article 5 we've agreed upon, which is, the building maintenance reserve.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why we changed Article 4 to the $25,000 was because of Article 3.
Uh-huh.
And if we go down up to Article 2, this has been changed in the area of tax impact, because we found out that yes, we can take it as not unanticipated revenue.
Return from fund balance.
Yeah, thank you. So fund balance to offset taxes, and that can be, we can put that on now and make sure that that's out there, and it can go to the changing the estimated increases in taxes in the tune of that $200,000. And the other ones are the typical ones. So we have Ringe school board member and a Jaffrey school board member.
Okay, so thank you for working, to you and Carrie for working with the DRA on that.
Yep.
And so the revenue sheet that was distributed today will be revised to show the change in the special warrant articles, right? As well as Article 4. So right now we're still at 450,000 special, that will go to 375.
Oh, because of the warrant articles. Okay. Yep. That'll be changed.
That has no impact on the bottom line though, right?
No.
Right, comes in, goes out. Thank you.
All right. Is there any other questions around these warrant articles?
But I would like to thank Carrie for making a change Article 2.
Yes, I agree.
Did you say thank Carrie for that? Okay.
Also, Article 5. I guess next Tuesday we'll find out from Laurel and Facilities Committee where we stand for the readiness.
I didn't hear all of that last part. Like, are you asking like what the goal of that money would be?
No. What I'm saying is, when we discussed this article, we were discussing how ready we were to do the work that this money is going to be used for. And at that point in time, we weren't certain. So come next Tuesday, we need to be 100% certain that everything's been done to spend this money.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think that we need to have the work posted. I am a little, Ruben, I think you sent out an email saying that you've developed a request for quote, or request for proposal for all of the parking,
Yes.
including Jeffrey Grade School.
Yes.
$350,000 will not accomplish all of that, though.
No.
And nor would there be enough money in the Building Maintenance Reserve Trust Fund should we receive a bid for a full-depth reconstruction of Jeffrey Grade School.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what the, maybe we can talk about this offline, but I'm not sure, unless we're setting out separate bid packages
Mm-hmm.
and seeing what comes back and then deciding what to pursue.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's going to work out well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you'll have your advice from legal and have the packages posted for bid by the time we have our hearing?
Yes.
Great.
Excellent.
Yeah. No, and we might not. I mean, certainly once we get everything from legal, then we'll send it to the facilities committee people to look over, because you always have some good thoughts. And if we are not, interested in putting a school on that, that's perfectly fine. But the good news is we have all the measurements and everything from all the schools now. That was my main push, was to be able to get, we didn't have Jaffrey Grade School a little while ago. Now we do. We've got the Ringe one. Of course, it's a different scope. And then the middle school, high school. So it lays out all the, tons, etc. Square feet.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great. You might consider having the facilities committee review concurrent with the legal.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
The facilities committee isn't going to comment on the legalese part.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good
Okay.
point.
So we need to take a vote on these warrant articles?
I don't think so. Other than Ruben's noted that Article 4 should be at 25,000, not 100.
Right.
We vote on them after the budget hearing or after deliberative session?
After
Oh gosh.
Sure.
The hearing, yeah, because we listen to any changes that people might have for them. But
Right.
Wanting to make sure that these were the ones that we wanted to put forward.
Okay.
Which I think we've already had discussion about every single one of them. And we changed, the point was we're changing the ones that we talked about, which was the article having to do with, the whole budget with a $200,000, what impact that had to taxes. And then this Article 4 has to be adjusted, but we know that.
So who's presenting which article?
Draw from a hat.
During the, I mean, I just figured we were going to do the same thing as we have done in the past. During the first session that we have, I usually just present everything. And then we split it all up for deliberative.
Okay.
And I try to do nothing.
Also, the 12th is the last day for petition articles. So we're going to be meeting, and if there are petition articles, we're going to do that as well.
Charlie, I couldn't understand a word you said.
Yeah.
Are you under a mic?
Yeah, he's a lot closer to the mic than I am.
Huh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. That's good. Good.
I said January 12th is the deadline for petition articles.
Oh.
So if we have any petition articles, we'll have to review them at the public hearing.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're all good. That we've just noted like a couple changes there. So we're up to public comments, second one. So raise your hand.
Again, just raise your hand and we're happy to address whoever wants to speak. Just first name, last name, town of residence. Please and thank you. So first we have Mark Haley.
Hi, Mark Haley from Keene, again, an 8th grade teacher. I wanted to first thank, in particular, John and Heidi for your comments about making sure that there's, at least the idea that we need to be aware that changes may come up and an emergency board meeting needs to be able to happen should things change in the coming weeks. I also just wanted to pass along that I know that sometimes language gets a little confusing, but I want to be very clear that there is not a teacher in this district who feels like this is the best model to teach children in, to be remote. We know that this is detrimental to a lot of different aspects of students' educations. The reason that so many of us are passionate about this comes from a place of safety. Because while our building level administrators have, through Herculean efforts, put in place a lot of really great protocols and things like that, we don't always have the manpower to enforce all of them. And it is with that in mind that I would, invite any board member to come to our schools to help mandate the masks and monitor hallways and ensure that students are 6 feet apart when they are transitioning, because we are busy cleaning our desks down while students are transitioning. There are not enough people to do those things. And I do think that were all of our protocols able to be put in place as they are laid out, we would be in great shape to go back safely. But we need the manpower to do it. And as you are the ones who are able to make that decision about whether we go back or not, I invite you to come and join us on the 19th and every day after to help make sure that students are wearing their masks and that they are socially. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mark.
Next we have Kevin Mcclellan.
Yes, I'm Kevin Mcclellan. I live in Keene and I teach at Jaffrey Ridge Middle School and Conan High School. I'm just a little confused and I would appreciate some clarification on this. It looks like one of the reasons you voted to go back to in-person is because local school level transmission has been low. School impact is low, precisely because we've been remote. So of course transmission is low, or I might be missing something. But yeah, if you could clarify for that, I'm confused. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, I'll just, if I may, would that be okay? Marcia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
School transmission across the state of New Hampshire has been relatively low for the number of schools that have been in person through the time frame up to this point. That was the point we were making. Not so much that our school's community transmission was low. It has been low, but like to your point, Kevin, it's probably been super low during these last few weeks because we've been, remote. But when we look at community, are we adding to the community outbreak, or are we adding to the community numbers? That's when we're in school. Is school doing that? Is school the danger? Is kind of the idea. That's the question, and the data does not seem to indicate that is the case across schools in general.
All right, thanks.
All right, and those are all the hands we had raised at this time.
Okay. All right, thank you. Board matters. Ruben already brought up the delegate assembly. Is there anything else? Heidi?
I'm just wondering if we could have an update on the new website and how things are coming along.
Yeah, I can handle that one. So we should finally have everything wrapped up to get set out officially to our website providers this week. One of the things that we were kind of waiting on and working on was this idea of branding with colors, logos, things like that. We have actually worked with Bulldog and Keen. We've produced a couple draft, or they rather have produced a couple draft logos for the grade school. There's a plan to kind of share those throughout that school and get some feedback. Working with students and the principal to kind of see like if there'd be a survey put together. So we would then have an official logo for the grade school, which kind of completes our logos for now. There are some greater conversations being had about maybe revamping logos at other schools so that we have a greater level of consistency. Just because, we have some logos that have been around for a really long time, some that are newer. So then we're going to get the base package of everything kind of put together. I don't have a current timeline on how long that kind of process takes them, but then we would reconvene the communications committee to look over the draft and make some minor revisions. So unfortunately, it's COVID kind of delayed some processes because some of the conversations I needed to have with certain people didn't happen as quick and efficiently, and we've been kind of working through some of these issues. But hopefully by the spring, but at the latest, we should have a new working website. And then we're also working on the back end right now. There's a lot of conversations being had about the connectivity between platforms like Web to School and School Messenger with our robocall system, which will eventually feed into our ability to have a greater level of communication with, potentially adding things like texting and push notifications to people's phones. But unfortunately, it looks like we might have to rebuild a few things on the back end in order to better allow these things to take place, like organization. Currently right now we're using Google Lists in order to email families. We can, lump all that in with School Messenger, but it does lead to us having, if we want to do it the right way, we have to rebuild some things internally or on the back end in order to help better have information flow from beginning to end. So that's the other kind of effort that's being worked on right now. And then once those two pieces come together, we get to work on the phone apps. So we are, moving forward on that end as well. So.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Any other board matters? All right, future items. We have a couple things posted here. The technology plan, which is an ongoing. Also the graduation requirements and new courses, which is some things that we have been introduced to, but there's more coming, right?
Yeah, so the education committee this month, we got to schedule that and plan it. We'll likely have more conversation having to do with these things. Just the point, I mean, every year we go over the course of studies and that gets adopted, and I think that happens in either late February or March, but I think the plan is February. But if there's any likely change requests, probably in the area of STEM education, and obviously the one that we talked about last time about careers. We want to be able to explain those prior to a board meeting where we're looking at a paragraph description.
All right. Patty?
And those graduation requirements would, if passed, factor in for the incoming freshman class next fall. So they would actually be out 4 years. I mean, they would have 4 years to complete those graduation requirements.
That was what the current proposal is that the high school put together. I'm all about making sure that this year's freshmen end up having to do everything as well.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
All right. And I know, Charlie, you had expressed an interest in a few things. I didn't know if you wanted to mention some of the.
Just the student services update and a financial update.
Right. Okay. So, things for the future. Thank you. So, that brings us to the end of the agenda.
Wow.
John?
Move to adjourn.
Yay! Can I get a second on that?
Sure.
All right, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.